We're going to be looking at the worst things about every Assassin's Creed game, and there will be spoilers ahead. We'll obviously start at the beginning with Assassin's Creed. Being released way back in 2007, 16 years ago, it wouldn't be fair to judge it on certain aspects like the graphics, but that does not mean that there weren't issues with this game. The parkour was slow, the combat was also slow and unvaried, and there was a lot of distance to cover in between missions, making the pace of this game feel really up and down. On top of that though, and the most common complaint is that the missions were also incredibly repetitive. But my most divisive issue, and don't hate me gang, this is just my opinion, is that Altair in AC1 is lacking in personality. He has very few lines of dialogue, and his entire plotline tends to be seeing people do the right thing, but his master says they're bad, they must be evil, so Altair kills them anyway. This happens again and again until he eventually realises that his master isn't all he's cracked up to be, and then our story ends. Despite all this though, at the time this game was absolutely groundbreaking and spanned the entire series which we all know and love today. I also could not mention that Altair also weirdly can't swim. Assassin's Creed 2. Released in 2009, honestly it was difficult to think of negatives to this game. Ubisoft had heard the feedback from AC1 and its repetitive missions, so in answer to this gave us some of the most absolutely incredible missions that we'll never forget. However, in some sense herein lies the game's biggest issue. The missions were so good, but unfortunately there was no way for you to go back and replay them. The only way you could do them again was to restart the whole game, which is obviously far from ideal. On top of that though, and again this is definitely divisive, is that some people really just did not warm to Ezio in AC2. He was arrogant, cocky, and his character had little to no growth throughout the course of the game. Sure, he changed as time went on throughout Brotherhood and Revelations, but no other AC protagonists are lucky enough to get 2, let alone 3 games dedicated to them. Don't get me wrong though, this is definitely one of the best Assassin's Creed games ever, and Ezio in himself is one of the most popular gaming characters of all time. Before we move on to Brotherhood though, I couldn't not mention those 100 feathers that we all struggle to find. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. This was originally designed to be part of AC2, but as it grew to be bigger and bigger, it had to become its own game, hence why it released just a year later in 2010. Like AC2, honestly this one was hard to find negatives on as well. The setting of Rome looked great, the combat was fantastic, and the multiplayer as well was really successful. If I had to find some negatives though, Rome is in my opinion too small with not enough content to enjoy within it, and there is also too much open space, which interestingly is a common complaint about the latest AC games. I also wasn't a fan of the modern day missions either, particularly looking for fuse boxes or that final timed puzzle. But the biggest issue here is within the story, and this is Lucy's death, which feels really out of place and with good reason. The reason Desmond kills Lucy is because she's a triple agent. In the real world, it's because Kristen Bell wanted more royalties. Ubisoft decided to kill Lucy off instead of to pay Kristen, so Lucy was probably not planned to be a Templar in the beginning. Either way, an unexpected ending in my eyes.
Holy forking shirt balls.
Assassin's Creed Revelations. The perfect wrap-up of the Ezio trilogy, even bringing back our original protagonist Altair, coupled with the fantastic Constantinople setting, Assassin's Creed Revelations should have been the ultimate AC game. Brotherhood and AC2 in my opinion didn't have enough content within it, and with Revelations this is even more extreme. The next time you decide to play Brotherhood, take a look at the map and compare how many mission prompts there are, and then take a look at Revelations. Yikes. On top of this, the types of side content they did have included the infamous tower defense missions. These weren't necessarily bad, and I know for a fact that many people enjoyed them, but to me they just feel incredibly out of place. They're almost like something you might find in a standalone mobile game. And finally, the storyline was only about 10 to 12 hours long, several hours less than Brotherhood, and whilst the storyline was definitely satisfying, overall your entire Revelations experience can be over before you know it. Assassin's Creed 3. This game seems to have a mixed review amongst the community. Some people love it and some people think it's a total downgrade. The combat was praised, the storyline was solid, giving us something totally different, and the graphics were a vast improvement, but there are two aspects that definitely hold AC3 back. Firstly, those naval missions. Whilst yes, some people enjoyed them, and yes, it was the whole reasoning behind the upcoming Black Flag, to me they needed vast improvements. The naval battles don't earn you money, they throw you into combat from the start and almost no strategy is needed, and the ship costs, while realistic, are way too high. The actual cost of doing them versus the reward is minimal. But the biggest issue has to be, you don't play as the main character Connor for hours. You first play as Haytham, Connor's father, for at least 4 hours of the game, and that's without doing any extra exploring. Haytham is also missing a few parkour abilities that Connor has, so when you do get to Connor, there's something extra for you to learn, making the game feel like one massive chunk of it is just a giant tutorial. Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Out of all the games I'm speaking on today, this probably has the least complaints. The naval missions were absolutely fantastic, spanning future pirate games even outside of Ubisoft, and everything from the combat, parkour, story, and our main character Edward was an absolute dream. My only complaint, and this seems to be universal, is those darn tailing missions. Now, I'm not saying that I hate tailing missions, because I don't. Stalking your enemies through the undergrowth or across rooftops can be super fun. But when they take up over 25% of the game, we have a major problem. Not only that, they were extremely long and stale. Yes, tailing missions are a staple of Assassin's Creed, and yes, there are lots of fun side quests to enjoy in Black Flag, but your main missions need to have more variety in them if you don't want people to find them tedious. Honestly though, aside this, Black Flag was and still is absolutely incredible. By the way guys, if you're enjoying this video so far, be a good assassin and hit that like and subscribe button, as it would really help my channel out. Assassin's Creed Rogue. Released on the same day as AC Unity but for previous gen consoles, this one definitely divides the fans. Rogue had a limited budget, which in some ways was a positive as it used a lot of the same aspects from Black Flag. The combat was again enjoyable, the naval battles were also great and actually expanded, and the parkour again was just as good, though the world is pretty small compared with previous titles. The story, however, is where things go downhill for me. Now, the premise is great, an assassin turned Templar, showing us what life is like from the other side, the makings of a great story. The execution, though, is just poor. I don't know why they did this, maybe it was the limited time frames, but all they do for Rogue is basically say that the assassins are bad and the Templars are good. It's just a straight role reversal. There's almost no reason for the conflict either. The assassins are simply made to be stupid, with Achilles and the rest just acting incredibly dumb. If they hadn't been so ignorant and had just listened to Shay, the entire plot would never have happened. Overall, I'm sorry to say, a 10-year-old could write it better. Shay also has one of the worst Irish accents I've ever heard.
Times do I have to tell you, Liam. I make my own luck.
Assassin's Creed Unity. Hailed by many as having the best parkour system in any AC game, Assassin's Creed Unity had an incredibly rocky start. It's known for having one of the worst releases of any AC game, as it was rammed full of bugs and the co-op was incredibly unstable. However, 1 year later, almost all of those bugs were fixed, so it wouldn't be fair to only mention them as the main issue, so the other big area where the game is lacking is definitely the story and lack of character building. The fact that Arno never finds and kills Shay, considering he is the one to assassinate Arno's father, is actually insane. Almost 10 years have passed since Unity's release, and to this day I still think about what could have been. Arno as well is an underdeveloped character, and to me is very similar to our main man Ezio. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's just nothing new personality wise. He's cocky when he's young, and towards the end of the game he becomes much wiser. Even Unity's story is almost identical to AC2. Overall, the story just lets it down for me with its lack of originality, and I don't warm to Arno so much, but the parkour, as we know, is just perfection. Assassin's Creed Syndicate. This is sadly one of the lowest rated games in the entire series, but it's definitely not without reason. For me personally, being from London, I was so hyped for this game, and whilst I still enjoyed it, it did let me down. Unlike the other games, I wouldn't say there is one big issue with Syndicate, instead it's lots of little things. Firstly, although running on the same system, the parkour was a direct downgrade from AC Unity. In a lot of places it works really well, but it definitely isn't refined as it should be. The grappling hook too, whilst enjoyable, almost negates the need of you having to use parkour. Carriage travelling as well, which was a big selling point before the release, is really difficult to control and often buggy. You'll be standing on top of your carriage shooting at enemies, and then out of nowhere you'll be flung into a wall. The combat too is unlike any other AC game. It's all designed with setting up your enemies into stun mode, them hovering around whilst you fight everyone else, and then you take them all out with one giant kill animation. These do look great, but it's not for everyone. We also only have 3 different types of hand-to-hand combat weapons, which to me just seems really lazy. The story as well isn't great, and although I do like the twins Evie and Jacob, our antagonist is cartoonishly evil. And lastly, not being able to have different save files is a real pain, with a bunch of small negatives adding up to an overall disappointing Assassin's Creed experience.
What a prick.
Assassin's Creed Origins. After the negative reviews and poor sales of Syndicate, this was the beginning of the RPG franchise, and before I do mention the worst aspect of Origins, I'm going to be very controversial and just say this. If Assassin's Creed didn't change to the RPG style and had kept the game similar to the older games, I could almost guarantee people would be saying, it's boring, switch it up, you haven't progressed in years. I personally, although I am ready for a return to the roots with the upcoming AC Mirage, I'm glad they switched things up. But despite Origins having a gorgeous map, a fantastic main character Bayek, who by the way is the best voice actor Assassin's Creed has ever had, and a really great storyline, there is one big issue that stops this game being a 10 out of 10. In order to progress through Origins, you'd have to seriously grind through boring side quest after boring side quest, leveling up Bayek until you could move on to the next point in the story. I don't necessarily mind grinding for gear and weapons, but to grind just for a number is a really big issue for me. Level scaling in Origins, Odyssey and Valhalla is a big issue all round, and we'll get to that shortly. I also don't know if anyone else ever thought this, but I just had to mention that the camel riding to me looks hilariously bad. Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Straight off the bat, Odyssey is a great game. It's graphically incredible, the combat is super enjoyable, and I like the whole choice system of Cassandra and Alexios. Their story too, personally, I thought was solid. And whilst this is a great RPG game, this is the least Assassin's Creed game I've ever played, and here lies its biggest issue. Stealth is practically non-existent, and in many cases dependent on who you were fighting or where you'd spent your ability points, you couldn't one-shot stealth kill an enemy, which is a big deal in a supposed Assassin's Creed game. The combat, again whilst great, is even more exacerbated than it was in Origins, and some enemies can almost take hundreds of hits before they'll eventually topple over. Herein lies the level scaling issue, but again even more amplified compared to Origins. The map too, whilst gorgeous, is the largest map in the entire franchise, and whilst for some people who think the bigger the game the better, for those of us with full-time jobs who don't have hundreds of hours to plow into every game, this could be considered an issue. Personally, it doesn't bother me, quite the opposite, but this is one of the most popular complaints about Odyssey. And this complaint brings us on to our final game, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. The best-selling Assassin's Creed game of all time, Valhalla is a personal favourite of mine and genuinely another incredible RPG game. It again looks beautiful, the combat is great with some really satisfying kill animations, and the storyline actually ties in some decent Assassin's Creed lore. But, just like Odyssey, this is a very loose AC game, with its biggest positive and negative being too much content. I for one have put over 450 hours into this game, and that will be exaggerated as I've made tons of videos on it, but to almost complete everything Valhalla has to offer, you're going to be hitting around the 200 hour mark, if not more. Stealth, whilst actually being better than Origins and Odyssey, is totally not needed past a certain point, and once you do reach level 200 or so, no matter the difficulty you're playing on, you become incredibly difficult to kill. It's kind of mad to look at the first AC game and Valhalla side by side, where you've gone from the stealthy assassin Altair to a Viking that wields weapons that fire projectiles and an armor set that drops bombs every time you take a hit. Do watch this earlier video of mine if you want to know how to get that gear, by the way. Now you'll notice I haven't included any of the DLCs or anything other than the main games in today's video, and that is solely because I haven't played them all, so it wouldn't feel right for me to comment on them. But what I have already done is made a best things video about every Assassin's Creed game, so just to show you I'm not always so negative, why not go and watch that one now? I'll catch you legends in the next one. Until then.